My name is Erika, and I'm 28 years old. I live in Chicago, where I work as a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company. On paper, I suppose I've been lucky. The job pays well, my colleagues respect me, and most days I genuinely enjoy what I do. People often tell me I'm the responsible one, and maybe they're right. I've always walked the straight path: grades, college, career, no detours, no drama. But in my family, responsibility often feels more like a punishment than a virtue. My mom, Janet, is 53. She works part-time at a local bookstore, still clinging to her dream of writing a novel one day. She's gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of person who can turn arguments into conversations just by lowering her voice. My dad, Robert, is 55 and runs a small hardware store downtown. Practical, gruff, but never unkind. He doesn't waste words, and when he does speak, it's usually final. And then there's Grace, my younger sister, 25. 3 years separate us, but it feels like an ocean sometimes. Grace has always been the creative one: painting, music, theater. While I buried my head in business textbooks, she was out staging plays with her friends or strumming songs in her room. But dreams are fragile when they meet reality. Since graduating with a communications degree, she's been floating. Temp jobs, short-term contracts, even a failed attempt at freelancing. Nothing lasts, nothing sticks. Lately, she's been living paycheck to paycheck, her optimism worn thin. I can see it in her eyes, that tired glaze that settles when someone feels the world is moving ahead while they're stuck. Our parents have been married nearly 30 years. Their anniversary was coming up, and though we've done little things in the past, a dinner, a gift card, a surprise cake, Grace suggested something bigger this year. We were sitting in a quiet cafe on a drizzly afternoon, steam rising from our cups. Grace stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her hair falling into her face. "We should do something memorable this time," she said softly. "Not just another dinner." I watched her carefully. Grace always chose her words like she was floating a balloon into the air, hoping it wouldn't pop. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Her shrug was almost defeated. "I don't know. Maybe a trip. They've never really traveled, not properly anyway." It was true. The farthest we'd gone together was Florida when we were kids. I remembered sunburns, melted ice cream, and Dad complaining about tourist traps. But Mom, she'd never stopped talking about Hawaii. Every time a travel show came on, her face would light up. "Look at those waterfalls. Look at that ocean," she'd sigh. The memory surfaced and slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it. Hawaii. Grace's eyes snapped up. For the first time in weeks, a spark lit in them. "That's perfect, but—" Her voice cracked, and she looked down again. "Erika, I can't afford something like that right now. Not even close." I knew. Everyone knew. Her last job had ended barely a month ago. She was scraping by, borrowing from me more often than she admitted. Still, hearing the resignation in her voice tugged at me. "Don't worry about it," I said after a pause. "I'll handle the big stuff: flights, hotel, meals. You can cover the extras, activities, tours, little things once we're there. That'll be manageable for you, right?" Her lips parted as though she didn't believe me at first. Then she smiled, a genuine smile that made her look like the sister I remembered from years ago. "You're the best, Erika, really. They're going to be so surprised." The way she said it, half relief, half admiration, made me warm inside, but uneasy too. Grace had always been quick to accept help, slower to return it. Still, I pushed the thought away. This was about family, not ledgers. The planning began almost immediately. I scoured travel websites late at night, my laptop glowing in the dark as I compared flights and hotels. Finally, I found a resort in Maui that seemed like it had been built for dreams. Ocean views, palm trees swaying outside every window, meals bundled neatly into the package. The flights stung my savings, but I could swing it. The total, about $8,000. A lot, yes, but worth it, I told myself. Grace's share would come in the form of activities, maybe $2,000 or $3,000, tops. Manageable, balanced, fair. When we finally told our parents, Mom gasped like she'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched my hand. "Hawaii? Really? After all these years of talking about it, I can't believe this." Dad tried to stay stoic, but his grin betrayed him. "Well, I suppose someone's got to keep an eye on you three in paradise," he teased. Grace's cheeks flushed with pride. For once, she wasn't the one falling behind. She was the one delivering joy. The next few weeks blurred with preparation. Mom borrowed travel guides from the library, scribbling notes in the margins. Dad made jokes about Hawaiian shirts and sunscreen. Grace buzzed with excitement, texting me links to excursions, snorkeling trips, luau shows, even a volcano tour. I should have been happy, and I was. But beneath it, a whisper gnawed at me. Grace's texts grew more ambitious each day. Helicopter rides, yacht cruises, spa packages. When I asked if she thought she could afford them, her replies were vague, playful. Don't worry, Erika, I'll figure it out. Something in the way she said it unsettled me. But then she'd laugh or send me a meme, and I'd shove the doubt aside. Departure day arrived before I could second guess any further. At 6 a.m., we met at O'Hare, suitcases rolling, eyes bleary, but hearts light. Mom hugged me tight at the gate, whispering, "This is the best gift anyone's ever given me." For a moment, everything felt right. I didn't know then that paradise would cost me far more than I had bargained for. Maui felt like stepping into another world. The moment we stepped off the plane, the air wrapped around us like warm silk, humid, fragrant, with plumeria. The resort shuttle wound its way along the coast, sunlight flickering on turquoise waves, and Mom couldn't stop pressing her face to the window, her breath fogging the glass like a child's. Dad pretended to be unimpressed, muttering about tourist traps, but his eyes lingered on the horizon longer than usual. Our rooms overlooked the ocean, the curtains fluttering with salt-kissed wind. Grace rushed to the balcony first, leaning over the rail, her hair whipping in the breeze. "This is it, Erika," she said, her eyes shining. "This is exactly what Mom's always dreamed of." And for the first 2 days, it really was paradise. We lounged by the pools, toes sinking into golden sand. At night, torches lit the walkways, and the sound of waves drowned out everything else. Grace surprised me by taking initiative, booking a snorkeling trip that had Mom squealing like a teenager when a sea turtle glided past her. Dad even loosened up, letting a local tour guide talk him into trying poi, though he grimaced after the first bite. For once, I felt light. We were a family again, laughing under Hawaiian sun, arguments replaced with sunscreen smears and shared plates of fresh pineapple. But joy is fragile, and mine shattered on the third morning. It was barely 7 when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. At first, I almost ignored it. Vacation meant ignoring alarms, but something made me answer. "Erika, this is Margaret, Sarah's mom." My stomach dropped. "Hi, Mrs. Peterson, is everything okay?" My voice sounded tight, foreign. Her pause told me everything. "There's been an accident. Sarah." Her voice broke. "A drunk driver ran a red light last night. She's in surgery, her spleen, internal bleeding. She hasn't woken up yet." The world tilted. The roar of waves outside turned into static in my ears. "Which hospital?" I whispered, already pulling clothes from my suitcase with shaking hands. "Northwestern Memorial, but honey, you don't have to." "There's no way I'm staying here while she's fighting for her life," I cut in. Within minutes, I was pounding on my parents' door. Mom gasped when I explained, pressing her hands to her mouth. Dad's face softened with something like sorrow, though he said nothing. When I reached Grace's room, she opened the door with damp hair, eyes bleary. "Sarah was in a car accident," I blurted out. "I'm flying home today." Her expression shifted, sympathy, then something unreadable. "Oh my God, Erika, I'm so sorry. Of course you should go." I booked the earliest flight at the front desk. As I signed the paperwork, a thought struck me like a stone. Grace was supposed to handle entertainment and activities. What if costs spiked? What if something went wrong? At breakfast, I slipped into the seat beside her and pressed an envelope into her hand. "Here, $1,000 cash, just in case." Her eyes widened, then softened. "Erika, thank you. This will make sure Mom and Dad have the best time." She held the envelope a beat too long, her fingers tightening before she tucked it into her purse. A smile spread across her lips, but there was something behind it, something sharp, almost hungry. I brushed it off. The flight home was a blur of recycled air and restless thoughts. By the time I landed in Chicago, it was nearly midnight. I went straight to Northwestern Memorial, heart hammering. There she was, Sarah, pale, frail, machines beeping beside her. But when her eyes fluttered open and landed on me, she whispered, "You came back." "Of course I came back, you idiot," I choked out, clutching her hand. "You scared the hell out of me." She gave the smallest laugh, wincing. "I ruined your vacation." Vacations happen all the time. Best friends almost dying in car accidents, not so much. For the next week, the hospital became my world. I brought coffee for her parents, sat by Sarah's bed, whispered encouragement through her pain. Each day she grew stronger, color returning to her cheeks. By the fifth day, the doctors were confident she would recover. Only then did I return to my apartment, exhausted, hollowed out, but relieved. I sank into bed, finally allowing myself to exhale. My phone blinked with dozens of notifications. At first, I thought they were messages from Grace or Mom checking in, but as I swiped through, my chest tightened. Not texts, not calls, bank alerts. Transaction after transaction, large amounts, thousands. I sat up, pulse racing, and opened my banking app. My breath caught in my throat. In just 5 days, over $10,000 had vanished. Spas, yacht cruises, volcanic excursions, luxury meals, shopping sprees, all in Hawaii. And in that instant, I knew. Grace. I stared at the screen, my stomach lurching with every line of text. $2,000 for a yacht cruise. $1,500 for a volcanic helicopter tour. $600 at a luxury spa. Meals, souvenirs, private guides, luau after luau. In 5 days, over $10,000 drained away from my card. The worst part? None of it surprised me. Not really. Somewhere deep down, I'd been waiting for this moment, ever since that envelope of cash left my hand at the breakfast table. Still, seeing the numbers in black and white felt like betrayal carved into stone. I shut my eyes, pressing my palms into them until stars bloomed in the dark. Then I remembered. Years ago, during one of her rough patches, I'd given Grace access to my card. Groceries, emergencies only. She'd promised it was temporary, and after a few months when she found a job, she stopped using it. I never thought to revoke the access. I never thought she'd remember. Apparently she had. I dialed her number with shaking fingers. It rang 4 times. 5. She finally answered, her voice breezy. "Hey, Erika, what's up?" My voice cracked like a whip. "Grace, what the hell is this? Why is there $10,000 charged to my account?" A pause, then, "Oh, that. Well, you left me here with Mom and Dad. They were bored, Erika. I had to make sure they enjoyed themselves. These are family expenses." Family expenses. The words hit me like ice water. "You spent my money without asking me," I said, my voice trembling with fury. Grace gave a short laugh, airy and dismissive. "Don't be so dramatic. I only bought a couple of things for myself. Most of it went to Mom and Dad. Honestly, you should be thanking me. They're having the time of their lives." "You promised to cover the activities," I shot back. "You swore you could handle it." Her tone hardened, just a fraction. "Plans changed. And honestly, Erika, you shouldn't have booked such an expensive trip in the first place if you couldn't handle the cost." I froze, phone pressed tight to my ear. "Are you seriously blaming me for you stealing from me?" "I didn't steal anything," she said smoothly. "You gave me access years ago. I just used it." "That was for groceries, Grace, groceries." She chuckled again, sharp and grating. "Relax. Mom and Dad are thrilled. Isn't that what matters? You're the successful one. You'll make this money back in no time." Something inside me snapped. Not anger, something colder, a clarity I hadn't felt before. "You're going to return every cent," I said, my voice low, deliberate. "Erika," she sighed, "I don't even have 10,000. You know that. So good luck trying." And then she hung up. For a long moment, I sat frozen, phone still pressed to my ear. My apartment was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I thought about calling Mom, but I already knew how that conversation would go. Grace just wanted to make us happy. Don't be so harsh, Erika. You can afford it, can't you? They'd side with her. They always did. I walked to the window, staring out at the Chicago skyline. Grace's smug little laugh echoed in my head. The money wasn't even the worst part. It was the entitlement. The way she saw my savings as community property, my success as her safety net. I realized in that moment I couldn't fight her with guilt or logic. She was immune. So I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed, "Small claims lawyer, Chicago financial fraud sibling." Hours slipped by as I scrolled through reviews, legal forums, articles. At last, one name surfaced again and again. David Martinez. Known for sharp strategy, no nonsense. He handled family financial disputes like mine. The next morning, I sat across from him in a sleek office, the kind with polished wood and faint smell of coffee. Martinez was in his 40s. dark eyes sharp but not unkind. He listened without interrupting, jotting notes as I poured out the whole story. Hawaii, Sarah's accident, Grace's betrayal. When I finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. Your sister committed theft, plain and simple. So I can sue her? Absolutely. Unauthorized use of funds, even with prior access, is fraud. We can go after the $10,000. Relief pulsed through me. Finally, someone saw it clearly. But then Martinez leaned forward, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Or we can go after more. I blinked. More? Bring me everything. Every receipt, every transfer, every bill you've covered for her. We'll show the court the full scope of her financial dependence. You'll be surprised at the number. I left his office with a new kind of fire burning inside me. Not rage, resolve. That night, I dug through folders, drawers, emails. I stacked receipts, downloaded bank statements, highlighted payments, rent checks, tuition transfers, insurance premiums. My pen scratched numbers into a notebook until the total stared back at me like a cruel joke. Over $60,000. $60,000, drained over 3 years, quietly, piece by piece, with me convincing myself it was help. As I sat there surrounded by proof of my own blind generosity, shame crept over me. How had I not seen it sooner? But under the shame, something else hardened. Grace thought she'd outsmarted me, that I'd shrug and move on, like always. This time she was wrong. The papers felt heavier than they should. Stacks of bank statements, rent receipts, tuition transfers, all neatly clipped into a folder that now lived in my bag like a hidden weapon. Every time I looked at it, my stomach tightened. Not just from the number, $60,000, but from the memories attached to each line item. The rent checks. I could still see Grace crying on my couch, saying she'd be homeless without me. The tuition bill, her desperate phone call at midnight, voice shaking. The car repairs, her trembling hands on the wheel when her old sedan gave out. Each time I told myself, she's my sister, I can't let her fall apart. But now I realized I hadn't been helping. I'd been feeding a bottomless hunger. When I showed Martinez the folder, he flipped through it silently, his sharp eyes darting across the numbers. Then he looked up. This is perfect, he said simply. Not just 10. We'll file for the full 60. Grace has treated you like an ATM. Time for her to face the reality. Hearing it out loud gave me a strange mix of nausea and power. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had proof. I had leverage. And I knew exactly when I'd use it. The following Sunday was my parents' anniversary dinner. As always, they hosted it at their house. Roast chicken in the oven, wine glasses set out on the table, Mom humming as she arranged flowers. It should have been a celebration. Instead, I walked in with the folder under my arm, heart pounding. Mom rushed to hug me at the door. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Erika, honey, we need to talk about Grace. I stiffened. What about her? She glanced at Dad, who appeared in the hallway, arms crossed. We know about the expenses, she said carefully. Grace told us. You shouldn't be upset with her. She did it for us. Dad's jaw was set like stone. She gave us memories we'll never forget. Stop making a fuss and just pay the bills. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My parents, the people who taught me right from wrong, were looking at me like I was the problem. She stole from me, I whispered. $10,000, Dad, without asking. Dad's eyes hardened. You gave her access. Don't twist the story. She was looking out for us. Behind them, at the kitchen table, Grace sat with a smug little smile, swirling wine in her glass, like she'd already won. Rage flared in my chest, but I forced my voice calm, steady. Actually, I said, stepping closer, I've decided not to ask for the $10,000 back. Grace's smile widened. Mom clapped her hands, relief flooding her face. Oh, Erika, that's wonderful. I knew you'd come around. Dad nodded approvingly. That's how family handles things. Grace began to rise from her chair, smugness radiating. But I lifted a hand. I'm not finished. The room fell quiet. I placed the folder on the table, sliding it toward her. What's that? She asked, the first flicker of unease crossing her face. Your debt, I said simply. She frowned but opened it, flipping through the pages. One by one, her smile drained. Rent payments, tuition bills, car repairs, insurance, internet. Line after line, proof of her dependence. Her hands began to shake. This is over $60,000, I said softly, watching her face pale. By the time she reached the last page, her lips parted in a strangled gasp. The lawsuit papers stared back at her, cold and final. You're joking, she whispered. No, I replied, my voice steady as steel. You have 3 months to return every cent, or we go to court. The kitchen erupted like a storm. Mom's voice rose, desperate. Erika, this is family business. You don't drag lawyers into this. Dad's face turned crimson. You selfish, greedy girl. After everything we've done for you, you'd humiliate us like this? Grace's voice cracked into a scream. You never said it was a loan. You just helped me, Erika. That's what sisters do. Help is temporary, I snapped back. 3 years isn't help. It's dependency. The shouting overlapped. Mom pleading, Dad accusing, Grace shrieking. I stood in the middle of it all, strangely calm, like I'd stepped outside my own body and was watching a scene from a play. Finally, I picked up the folder, slid it back into my bag, and slung my purse over my shoulder. I'm done, I said. Grace, you have 3 months. And then I walked out. Behind me, their voices still clashed. Anger, disappointment, betrayal. But I didn't turn back. For once, I wasn't the one carrying their chaos. That night, alone in my apartment, silence pressed in on me. For years, I'd imagined standing up to them, but I'd never pictured the aftermath, the hollow echo of family ties unraveling. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt like a soldier walking away from a battlefield, victory heavy as grief. But even through the ache, one thought kept me steady. This time I wasn't backing down. The air in Martinez's office was thick with silence. I arrived right on time, but they were already there, my parents side by side, Mom's hands clenched in her lap, Dad's jaw tight, and Grace slouched in the chair like a child about to be scolded. Only she wasn't the one bracing for punishment. All 3 sets of eyes turned on me the moment I stepped inside, and I could feel the weight of their judgment before a single word was spoken. Thank you all for coming, Martinez said, his voice steady, professional. He gestured to the conference table, where a neat stack of papers waited. We're here to discuss repayment of Erika's documented support to her sister Grace. Dad muttered under his breath, loud enough for me to hear. Insane. Suing your own family. I pulled out my chair and sat without looking at him. Martinez slid the papers across the table toward Grace. This is a voluntary repayment agreement. $60,000. Structured over 12 months. $5,000 per month. If you sign this, we avoid court. Grace's hand twitched, but she didn't reach for the pen. Her eyes darted to Mom, then to Dad, searching for rescue. What if I can't make the payments? She asked finally, her voice small. Then we proceed to court, Martinez said matter-of-factly. You'll still owe the money, plus court costs and legal fees. The words hung heavy in the room. Mom leaned forward, tears brimming in her eyes. Grace, honey, just sign. We'll figure something out. For a moment, I saw my sister hesitate. Then, with shaking hands, she picked up the pen. The only sound was the scratch of ink across paper, each stroke of her signature binding her to the debt she never expected to face. When she finally dropped the pen, silence flooded the room again. Then Dad stood, fury etched across his face. He jabbed a finger at me. You've destroyed this family, Erika, over money. I hope you're proud of yourself. My throat tightened, but I held his stare. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped letting her use me. Mom's voice cracked as she wiped her tears. How could you do this to your sister? After everything we've been through, you're greedy, Erika. Heartless. I almost laughed. Bitter. Hollow. Greedy? Heartless? After 3 years of bailing Grace out of disaster after disaster, after handing her thousands I barely admitted to myself? Grace finally looked up, her eyes red but sharp. You got your money, Erika, but you lost your family. And with that, she pushed her chair back. My parents rose immediately, flanking her like guards protecting royalty. Without another glance at me, they walked out, 3 shadows disappearing through the glass doors, leaving the smell of anger and disappointment behind. I sat frozen. My chest ached, but not from surprise. I'd known this was coming. Still, hearing it out loud, you're cut out, you're greedy, you've destroyed us, stung deeper than I'd prepared for. Martinez's voice was softer now. I'm sorry it went that way. I swallowed hard. I knew it would. I just hoped, maybe. My words trailed off. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone, he said. But you're not wrong, Erika. You've been exploited. Now you've drawn the line. I nodded, though my hands trembled as I gathered the papers. Walking out of that office, I felt both heavier and lighter, like someone had cut out a piece of me I'd carried for years. Outside, the sky was gray, threatening rain. I pulled my coat tighter, my heels clicking against the pavement. For the first time in my life, I wasn't Grace's safety net. I wasn't the responsible one who quietly carried the weight. I was something else now. And though my parents had turned their backs on me, I couldn't shake the quiet truth blooming in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, I was finally free. 2 months later, the money began to arrive. On the 15th of every month, like clockwork, $5,000 appeared in my account. The transfers were neat, clinical, without messages attached. For the first time in years, money flowed the other way, from Grace back to me. At least that's what I thought. It was my Aunt Linda who called me one evening, her voice hesitant. "Erika, I think you should know. It's not Grace making those payments." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "Your parents. They've been working extra hours. Robert's taken out a loan. Janet's been covering extra shifts at the bookstore. Grace." Aunt Linda hesitated, her sigh heavy. "Grace quit her job. She says she's too stressed, that you ruined her life. She spends her days lying on the couch." I sank into my chair, the phone pressed tight to my ear. My parents drowning themselves in debt to cover hers, still enabling her, still treating her as fragile porcelain while I was cast as stone. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Instead, I whispered, "Thank you for telling me." And then I hung up, sitting in the quiet dark of my apartment. Word spread quickly through the family. At birthdays, weddings, casual dinners I was no longer invited to, Grace's story circulated. Erika sued her own sister. Erika destroyed the family. Erika is greedy. Some cousins stopped returning my calls. Others sent messages dripping with pity, thinly veiled accusations in every word. I told myself it didn't matter, but loneliness has a way of echoing. Nights, I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos. Grace and me at the beach as kids, our arms linked. Mom laughing at one of Dad's corny jokes. Family dinners crowded with warmth I once thought unshakable. Now those memories felt like postcards from a place that no longer existed. Yet in that emptiness, something else grew. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, ideas, campaigns. 2 months after the confrontation, I was promoted to senior marketing manager. My boss congratulated me on my focus, my discipline. He didn't know it came from the sudden silence of not fielding Grace's late-night emergencies. And Sarah, thank God for Sarah. She recovered steadily, her strength returning with each physical therapy session. She'd listen, horrified, when I told her what happened. "Your sister stole from you, your parents took her side, and somehow you're the villain," she said one night as we shared takeout on her couch. "That's backwards, Erika, completely backwards." I smiled faintly, though it didn't reach my eyes. "Tell that to the rest of my family." She squeezed my hand. "Their loss. You deserve better." I began to dream again. Quiet, personal dreams I'd buried under obligations. Italy. I'd always wanted to wander cobblestone streets, taste wine in Tuscany, stand before the Colosseum at dusk. For years, I'd postponed it. Someone always needed me more. Not anymore. I booked the ticket one evening without hesitation. A solo trip, just me. No one else's bills to cover, no one else's joy to finance. The confirmation email pinged my inbox, and I felt something like freedom bloom in my chest. Still, late at night, when the city outside my window hushed to silence, doubts sometimes whispered. Should I have handled it differently? Should I have forgiven her, again, like always? Should I have fought harder for my parents' understanding? But then I'd remember Grace's laughter on the phone. "Relax, Erika, these are family expenses." The smug smile as she swirled her wine at the kitchen table, the way my parents, without hesitation, branded me greedy for wanting back what was mine. And the doubt would quiet. Because in the end, I hadn't destroyed the family. I'd just stopped pretending their version of family was love. The payments still came, regular as sunrise. $5,000 on the 15th. My parents' sacrifice, not Grace's. A reminder each month that they'd chosen her dependency over my dignity. I no longer felt guilty. They made their choice, and I made mine. One evening, I stood on my balcony, the city lights stretching out before me, and I thought of my sister. Sometimes I wonder if she'll ever grow up, if she'll ever stand on her own 2 feet without leaning on someone else until they break. But then I remind myself that's not my problem anymore. For the first time in years, I'm free.